This is a recorded tutorial on how to use Piskel, which is a free website that we are going to be using to create our animated pixel art projects. When you first get to Piskel, you're going to sign in. You'll click sign in, and it will take you to your Google login. So go ahead and put in your GMHS email next and put in your password and sign in. So now it will be linked with your Gmail account for our school. Then you're going to click Create Sprite. That will bring you to this screen. And we can see that the default size of it, if I go over here to resize, our default size is 32 pixels by 32 pixels. That is perfectly fine for what we're doing, but if you want something with more detail, you can increase the size, but don't go below that because that's going to be a good minimum to start with. And let's just start by looking at all the kind of tools that are available to us on the screen. So this is the pen tool. I can use this to make dots or lines. And it has sizes from 1 to 4 pixels. So that's 1 pixel, 2 pixels, 3 pixels, 4 pixels. Then there is a mirror pen tool. So this would let me make something that is the same on both sides. Very convenient if you're trying to create something symmetrical. I'm just going to undo all of that. Actually, if I want to get rid of this, let's use our eraser tool. Okay, there's also an eraser tool, also a range of sizes available in that. Paint bucket tool is going to fill a whole area with one color. Paint bucket of all the same color is going to fill just those areas that are the color you choose. So let's say I just want to fill the black without getting rid of that part. Okay, so paint just the same color. Stroke tool makes straight lines. Eraser tool we just looked at. Rectangle tool is going to let you draw a rectangle. I'll make a different color so that we can see it. So I can use the rectangle tool to draw a box. Circle tool lets us make a circle. This is looking really bad. Don't worry about it right now. And this is the move tool. Lets me move things around. The shape selection lets me select just one shape and then I could move it around. Nope, my mistake. Lets me select one shape, I assume to change colors or whatever. I have not actually used that in practice. Lasso selection, rectangle selection, lighten or darken, dithering. We'll talk about that in a minute. And color picker. Okay, those are all our tools. It's a very simple program, much simpler than some of the other things that we've used like Photopea, but that's good because pixel art is simple. And I am just really quickly going to select everything on my screen and delete it. Okay, oops. So then what do we have over here on the right side of the screen? Well, we have our preferences and settings, save your work, export your work, all that. We have export options, import, and then this is to flip things. You can flip stuff vertically here. You can rotate, you can clone, and you can align image to center. So these are transformations and crop. And then here is our layers and our palette. So when I first start, what I actually would like to do, and what I would suggest you do, is create a palette. So let's say that I am making a watermelon slice. That's going to be my project. So I'm going to create a palette right now, and I'm clicking that button. I'm just showing I'm clicking this pen to manage the palette, and I'm going to call it watermelon for this project. And yeah, I need black. Black is good. I'm going to add another color here and make it be a nice kind of juicy pink. That's a little too purpley. There we go. That's a nice pink. Okay. And I'm going to add a darker reddish pink. Actually, that's a really good pink. I like that for my watermelon. I'm getting rid of this one. Okay. And when I click the plus button, it's going to, oops. If I select this and then click the plus button, it will duplicate it. And then I can make a shade of it, so a darker version. for my shading. That'll look really great. And I have black already, so now I also need some green and some yellow green for the rind. So I'm going to make this be a nice rich green. That looks awesome. And I'll make a brighter version of the green. And I'm going to make one more color that's like more yellowy for the inside of that. And then I need a white one because there's that little bit of white. So that's a good palette for now. I can always edit this later and change it. And in fact, I do want to add one more color. I want to make sure that I have something for the background. So I'm going to manage the palette and I'm going to make my background color be like a nice kind of sky blue kind of color that my watermelon is chilling on the beach. I don't know where this watermelon is, whatever. And hit save. So layers. Any part of your animation that moves should probably be on its own layer. So I'm going to create a couple layers here, layer 1, 2, 3. On layer 1, I'm going to edit the layer name and call this background. My background is almost never going to move for this type of thing. Oops. I had to hit enter to get it to save, my bad. And then I'm going to create layer 2. We're going to call it watermelon. And I don't know what layer 3 is going to be. We'll figure that out. And again, I forgot to hit enter to save the name. Okay, so background. Let's get that blue color that I made in my palette. So I'm clicking it over in the palette and I'm using my bucket tool to fill. And we're just gonna have that bright background for now. This is a pretty simple example. You can be as complex as you want with this. So think about all those beautiful examples of pixel art that we looked at during class and use those as inspiration. Be as complex as you want. And then we are going to go to our watermelon layer and draw the basic shape for our watermelon. So I'm using my pen tool and starting with my palette on this guy here, getting my pen tool set to 1 pixel. And I'm going to start with that like light green. And since a watermelon is symmetrical, there's an even easier way to do this, which would be to use the like mirror pen tool. And I'll show you how that works. So if I click this vertical mirror pen, if I'm drawing here, it's also going to draw on the other side and get it to come over and join. Oops. Every time I say oops and undo something, I'm just hitting Control Z on the keyboard, so you don't have to overcomplicate it. And actually, I think that that's too low at the bottom, so I'm going to bring it like that and erase this part and see how that looks. That's a decent shape. I would probably bring it over a little bit more here. That's a nice shape for a watermelon slice. And then I'm going to get my next darker green. And you see I'm still using that vertical pen tool or that vertical mirror pen tool and bring that like that. And I'm going to get my darkest green for the outside of the rind. And I don't know if you remember from math class, when you're drawing a line, you get the slope and it's rise over run. That's a good way to think about how to make these curves in pixel art. So like here I have it rises 2, runs 1, rises 2, runs 1, rises 2, runs 1, and then I have a 1-to-1, and then I have the opposite, runs 2, rises 1. If you don't remember this from math, don't worry about it, but basically just think about any kind of curve you make, you could be going up 1 dot at a time and across 1 dot at a time at the same time. It's going to make like a 45-degree angle, or you could be going up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, that sort of thing. I don't know if that makes any sense. Maybe I could cut this part of the video, or you can just suffer through it. Okay, so I went ahead and drew the rest of the watermelon, and I'm actually going to delete this layer 3 for now. I just hit the X button to delete it. And we're going to make a really simple animation with this watermelon to start. So we're just going to make it move up and down. And what we're going to do is add new frame. Sorry, actually, we're not going to add new frame. We are going to duplicate this frame. and use our move tool to grab the little watermelon and move it up one spot. And we're going to do that again. Duplicate the frame, move it up one. Duplicate the frame, move it up one. Duplicate the frame, move it up one. So keeping it really simple. And if you look over here, you can see a little preview. Okay, this is one-time preview. I can look at it 6 times. It's going to show it a little bigger. That's much easier to see. I highly recommend that. Or you can see full size. 6 times, full size is very similar. And I can keep doing that, duplicating it and moving it up. And you can see that preview movement. I can also change the FPS, the frames per second here. So I can make it be slower, so it moves a little bit more gradually, or I can make it be much faster, so it's moving much faster. 12 frames per second is the default. And if you remember from our study of animation, 12 FPS is what you would typically have in an animation with double images. So like this one would be double, this one would be double, making it a 24 frame per second equivalent. Not to overcomplicate things. Sorry if that was making things more confusing, but basically now I have a little animation where this watermelon is moving up and then looping back down. Okay, so I am going to add a third layer and it's going to be called face. I'm going to put a little face on this watermelon. So right now the watermelon's bouncing up and down, or it's bouncing up and then starting at the bottom and coming up again. And I'm going to add another element of a face with a mouth opening and closing. So I'm on the face layer. I can see grayed out a little bit the watermelon layer and the background layer underneath that. And that lets me know where I need to place my face. So I'm using my pen tool and I'm gonna just use my white out of my palette to make a little smile. I'm just using white because it's gonna create some nice contrast and stand out on top of the watermelon. I also have the onion skin feature on here. And what that does is it shows me when I go to the next layer, what was on my previous layer so that I can duplicate that. And I'm going to put some white eye parts around. We'll see what looks good. Let's figure it out. Okay, so I made some revisions to it while I was paused on recording. And basically I have these different layers for the face. A little animation, I can see it previewed up here. If I want to slow down, I can put it at 0 FPS and see what that individual frame is going to look like. I have it onion skinned, so I can see the thing that's underneath, like that. So when I went up to this one, I could see, hey, that's the previous one, and be able to draw off of that. It can be a little confusing to explain that, but you'll figure it out as you're working. And if you need to change the order of a layer, like if the face needed to be under the watermelon for some reason, which it does not, but like you can move them that way, just so you know that that's an option. And you can always merge layers and things like that, delete them, add them. And then the other thing I want though is I don't want it to just like bounce down and start over again. I actually want it to like loop through. So I am going to duplicate these layers and make it go back and forth. So I'm duplicating this one and I'm going to drag it down there, duplicating this one and dragging it down to the end. And I'll do that all the way through. So I've got, that was number 4. And I want to duplicate number 3 and bring that down to the end. And so on. So now I've got my preview. You can see I've got it going up and down, mouth is moving. So there's 2 different animations happening. There's the movement of the watermelon and there's the movement of the mouth. For full credit on this assignment, you need 3 animations. So there would need to be something happening in the background as well. I am going to export this now by going to, well, first of all, make sure you're saving while you work, okay? I should have said that a long time ago, saved my gallery online. And then when I'm all done, I can export. I'm going to export it as a GIF, loop repeatedly, yes. I'm changing the resolution though from 32 by 32 to 320 by 320. That's a 10 times scale. You could even do 360. It doesn't really matter. But we want it to be higher resolution so that when we put it online, it looks good.